Okay, so I just wanted to make a quick Demons matchup chart before the edition ends here, and who knows, maybe Demons are kaput next edition, or at least I think their identity as an army is probably going to change. Demons are my most played army of the edition, almost certainly. I've enjoyed playing them quite a bit, and I just wanted to talk about them a little bit. I'm not like the greatest player in the world. I play on Tabletop Simulator. I'm currently like 3-0 in an online GT. And I tend to do alright. Like I'll go like X and 1, let's say. But without further ado, let's get into the matchup chart. First, I'll just go over a few things. I'll just explain the tiers. I'll kind of explain my logic a bit with ranking the armies, and I'll actually go over my list because I think that kind of influences things a tiny bit. So as far as the tiers go, Wee Woo. This is bad. This is when the matchup is bad. And against an equally skilled opponent, you're not going to have a lot of opportunities to win, and you're probably going to need to get very lucky, or they're going to need to make a very big mistake. We need to scam a little is sort of the same thing, but just to a less extreme. Like, you're going to need to spike some saves, or you're going to need to outplay your opponent. There's going to need to be some kind of like a knowledge gap or something in the matchup for us to be able to take this one. Reasonable. That's exactly what it sounds like. It's a 50-50. Good unless something silly happens. This is like we're favored. Unless, again, Demons like are a swingy army. Like it could totally swing the other way. And bad things can happen, or you can make a goof and lose. Then Hell Yeah is just like a winning matchup. I think in this case it's going to be, you know, you're going to need to like fail all your saves, or you're gonna have to make a very large mistake in order to lose this game. As far as my list goes, I'll just show you guys what I'm running. I'm running Be'lakor. I'm running Demonic Incursion. So Be'lakor, the Ghoul, the Endless Gift, Kairos, the Eversave Lord of Change, a regular Lord of Change, Scarbrand, some Nurglings, and the Plague Bears. So it's a running incursion. It slightly leans shooting because I got 3 of the Tzeentch demons. I think that I've found success with this because it's more shooting than most people expect. And as they start seeing their army get chipped away, they're like, oh, I actually need to like make a play here. I need to like move in, and then you can play around the Lone Op aura from Be'lakor. And I think it just gives you more play into a wider variety of armies, so I've enjoyed playing that. And the reason why I wanted to quickly touch on my list is because of the way 40k stats works. I will talk about the stats when I talk about individual matchups, but I think it's important to, discuss that the overall volume of games for 40k in terms of stats just is not that high. Especially at like a given sort of snapshot in the meta. If you play a game like Dota or League or something, there's tons of games being played, and especially tons of games at a very high level, and they're up to date. And so it's easy to make claims like, this character or this hero is really broken. It's like, well, yeah, like they just got updated 3 days ago and there's 10 trillion games played and they have a really high win rate or something. 40k is not like that. So people's opinion kind of does matter. Like you have to take into account individual players' experiences because there's probably only like a small amount of players that play some of these armies at a high level. I'm not trying to say that I'm necessarily that person for Demons, but if there's only really a few, a handful of people that say play Genestealer Cult at a high level and they all say that Genestealer Cult beats Demons, Genestealer Cult probably beats Demons. Like it's just because you kind of have to take their word for it. To make it interesting, I'll try to rank like, instead of just putting all our good matchups down and then all our pretty good matchups down, like I'll just try to pick one from each as I go along here. Let's do a good matchup. We'll start with a good matchup. Let's start positive, guys. We'll do Aeldari. I play Aeldari as well, like I own them in person. Ever since their nerf to their ability to recycle units, this army is not nearly as threatening as it used to be. And what happens is stat checking them and disrespecting them is very good on average, and demons are really good at that. A couple notable things I'll say is that especially in my list, like I showed you, every single Greater Demon's shooting is very threatening. Be'lakor has like the perfect shooting into Eldar. Skarbrand's Flamer is an Overwatch threat, his Torrent weapon. The Guo has a Torrent weapon that's threatening to them. Obviously, the Lords of Change. Kairos Indirect is picking up potentially like an Aspect Warrior squad at turn. So yes, they can ignore Overwatch in one place, but you have 2 Overwatch units. So something's getting Overwatched and dying during your opponent's turn. And again, like you can kind of just run at them. Eldar don't like when you're like also lethal, and they don't like when you're all one profile, because they usually kind of are mixed arms in terms of their output. So they don't like it when you're just running a bunch of big things. And additionally, the stats sort of reflect that. Like the win rates, I'm going to be mostly focusing on Scintillating and Demonic Incursion, because those are the 2 most popular detachments and probably the 2 best ones. Both of the detachments have above a 60% win rate into Eldari, so confident saying that's a very winning matchup. Next, I'll do Admech into good unless something silly happens. Historically, you might think that Admech probably would beat Demons, because like you just run the last chickens and you just kind of blast them. The Lord of Change, and I'm going to sound like a broken record as the video goes on saying this, but the Lord of Change having like credible, consistent shooting completely warps this matchup, because what happens a lot is you just kill. They're running all these Sakaran units, right? The Ruststalkers and the Infiltrators. Like, Demons are very capable of just deleting all of those, like, in one turn. Like, Kairos, I run 2 Lords of Change, like some some Be'lakor shooting, like, you can just kill all of them. And then you have this lone op, and you don't have units that actually want to walk into the aura. And so whatever it does and threatens you is now in melee range, or it's even just in like Everstave, Lord of Change range, and he can totally kill 2 or 3 chickens a turn. So I think this is actually a pretty good matchup for us. The only reason I don't have this in the great tier is because the stats actually have Admech performing pretty okay into us. Like Demonic Incursion actually has a below 50% win rate, which I find surprising, and Scintillating has the higher win rate. But since the Lord of Change rev, I've never lost into Admech. I've had good matchups, so I'm confident in putting this right here. Next matchup as reasonable. I'll put Death Guard. I think this has kind of flip-flopped quite a bit. On release, obviously Death Guard are very powerful, and the match was pretty bad. -1 to hit is usually the contagion they'll pick, and that's really good into us. We don't have inherent rerolls. And it was really bad until, again, the Lord of Change buff. We have a unit that is threatening to them and doesn't need to get in contagion range, whereas the bigger demons, like the melee oriented ones, they do, and then they would bounce a lot of the times, and now that just doesn't happen, and the matchup looks quite a bit different. The win rates are around 50, maybe slightly higher, which is pretty average for us. We're an above average army, as you'll see as I sort of continue making this list. But there's not a ton of Defiler games as of when I'm making this. There's just not a ton of Defiler games in the stats, and I imagine that will skew it back to being closer to even, or maybe even slightly Death Guard favored. The typical demon list, like, it doesn't run melee enough to kill reliably 2 Defilers in one turn, just via melee, so you kind of have to shoot them, and then when you shoot them, they have the Mortarion combo where, like, the Defiler shoots you back, and that can do serious damage to you, so it can be a little bit tricky to navigate. I'll leave that as a 50-50. We need to scam a little. I'm going to put Sisters here, and this kind of goes against the stats, because the stats say Demonic Incursion is at around 50, and Scintillating is better, even better than that. The thing about this is Demons are a sort of mid-table bullying army. Like, we don't typically win events, but we'll go, like, 2-0, like, early on, or like 3-1 or whatever. And our win rate is good in those sort of early to middle of tournament games. Sisters are kind of the opposite. Like, if a Sisters player is like if you put a 3-0 Demon player against a 3-0 Sisters player, I'm more confident that the 3-0 Sisters player is like quite skilled at the game and they know what they need to do to beat the Demon player. Whereas the Demon player, like, who knows? Like, we could have just like scammed some 4-ups and or like stat checked someone and they couldn't stop us. Scissors have a lot of tricks. They have dice fixing, like they have scam potential, but in a, they literally fix dice. Like they have miracle dice. They can push through melta wounds on us and all those things. They can like bring characters back. They can sit on objectives with sacrosanths, and they have these modifiers that make it annoying for us to engage with them. So I think this matchup's, even though the stats slightly favor us, this is an instance of when, if you just play the matchup against a really good player, you'll kind of see, oh, this is actually kind of difficult to navigate. Wee Woo. What's a horrible matchup? Again, I'll pick one that the stats doesn't really reflect as of now, but I'll put generic CSM there. The Pact-Bound Defiler is the literal last thing you ever want to see across the table from me as a demon player. It just shoots way too many. It just has way too much dice going on. There's like sustained, lethals, will be a trend as I sort of keep making this list. Lethals, as a rule, lethal hits is just not good for us because it mitigates our best skew, right, which is our toughness. You'd think it's our invuln save, but our invuln save is only good because of our high toughness, and so you need to run these sort of lower volume, higher strength shots, and then we have a 50-50 chance to just negate it. But when you're running army, your army will, you just have lethal hits, and everything is doing that, and it's just pushing way too much damage through. I played in a team tournament. I was in the final round. It was against Nemo the Fishes team. I positioned in such a way that his only Overwatch was not sustained lethal from the Hellbrute with a Defiler, and it was not. I had cover with AP1, so like Scarbrain had cover, and he took 19 of 20 wounds to Overwatch from one Defiler, and then he did charge and he blew up the Defiler, but he had one wound and he died to like Cypher's pistols or something the next round. So needless to say, I got 20-0 to that game, but that just goes to show that this matchup is like abysmal. The Pact-Bound, it just does way too much damage. You can't really share yourself. Like a Pact-Bound Defiler can totally one-tap the Endless Gift Guo, like, pretty reliably. Again, the stats like don't necessarily show that. The stats are actually like pretty close, but there's just not enough Defiler games. Next in the very good tier for us, I'll put Dark Eldar, and it's kind of for the same reason as Eldari. They don't want to be stat checked, and they can stop Overwatch, but only in one place. Like something's getting Overwatched and taking serious damage. They're fast, but we're also fast. They can kind of screen us, but like the Guo is just going to sit on an objective. They're probably not going to be able to kill him, and they can only flip the objective, like move 5 models at a time onto the objective for so long until you just shove into them and you completely kill them. And the stats agree with this one. Like the win rate is very high for scintillating and for demonic incursion. Next, sort of a slightly favorable matchup for us. I'll put Custodes here. Custodes, the Land Raider is kind of a problem because we don't really want to deal with the 2-up save thing, and the whole army has a 2-up save obviously, but the flat 3 and the Lords of Change, I'm really good into them. I run 3 different models that have very similar shooting with Kairos and the 2 Lords of Change. They just kill Custodes, and what I found is if you just use Scarbrand to pop a Land Raider, the other guys have to come out of the other Land Raiders, and then you can kind of just wipe them. Like you will lose something, like especially if they hold the they hold the objective and they attack you like with full wound rerolls, like they will do serious damage to you, but we're maneuverable and we can kind of just pick our battles and take over their game. They're very reliant on dominating the primary, and because we're highly mobile, it's actually a little bit difficult for them to do that. And the win rates here are they're quite strong. Like they're both in high 50s, both of the detachments. What's the next reasonable matchup? I'll go with Thousand Suns. This one's interesting because the stats have us ever so slightly winning, but again, that's kind of average for our army. Like our win rate is a bit above 50%. And again, very few Defiler games. The Thousand Suns probably have the second best Defiler. It can totally overwatch and do some serious damage to us. And because of the way we want to move, like we want a 6-inch deep strike and we want to do these things, but we might be within range, within 9 inches of a psyker, and then they get the buffed overwatch, which isn't great for us. What I found is that they will have a turn where they will do pretty serious damage, but if you hit them first and you kind of lock them in combat, they don't love that. And they are a little bit of a mono shooting army. Like they have a bit of stuff like, they'll lose some mortals to you and stuff like that. And Magnus is okay in melee, but if you hit them reasonably hard in shooting in one part of the board and then connect in melee somewhere else, you can kind of get them off the objectives. And even though they'll probably pick you apart and you'll start losing things as the game goes on, you'll probably be fine. Next, into the we need to scam a little. This could probably go into the bad tier, but I'm going to put this here because the win rates are actually okay. It's kind of 40 to 50 depending on the detachment. The thing about this is I think like a very good Tau player, they'll use the mobility and they will use the fact that they have quite a few units and they will like screen you out and they'll just kind of make it like a boring game. And they'll just slowly take it. A less experienced Tau player will actually try to do the Montka like hyper aggressive alpha strike on you, and that makes the game. I think that actually makes it way more likely that we win because you spike some saves here and there. Like they can't actually target your important demons if you deploy correctly with the lone op, and we're very capable of clapping back and killing them. Like Scarbrand or Be'lakor getting in combat with the Riptide can probably kill them. It's a little bit dicey because they have a 4-up involved. And then like all of the Lord of Change shooting and torrent weapons are totally good at killing all the Pathfinders and things that get in the way and the Piranhas or whatnot. So again, 40 to 50% win rate depending on the detachment. But there's play, and there's definitely room for the Tau player to make mistakes. They have a little bit more agency than us, but we have some angles. What is the next I'll say this is probably the worst matchup. I'm going to put Guard, and I'm going to say this is probably the worst matchup. Guard they check basically every box to stop demons. They have lots of models. They're surprisingly lethal. And regardless of detachment, like if they run combined arms, like God forbid, like everything has lethal hits. There's a million models. They will just reliably pick up the demons if they need to and then out OC you everywhere else. Grizzled Company and the Scions is also a ton of damage into us. And the win rates here really reflect that. I think the Demonic Incursion win rate is below 45 and the Scintillating win rate is like 30% or something. Like it's terrible. Probably the worst army to see across the table from you, especially on the higher tables. Next, we'll go to the Hell Yeah tier. I'm going to put Imperial Knights here. And while I do that, I'll put Chaos Knights down, but I'm going to put them here, and I'll kind of explain why. Imperial Knights tend to run more of the big guys. Like, I feel like Chaos Knights usually run 3 bigs, and Imperial Knights, it's like 4 to 5. We're very good at killing the big knights. Like, Scarbrand just blows them up. Be'lakor is even pretty reliably able to do like the majority of the wounds to a single big knight. The Everstave Lord of Change is really good. So we'll have a turn where we go from being in the lone op and not really being threatened to just like popping 2, maybe even 2.5, possibly 3 big knights in one go, and they can't recover from that. Like I just played a game recently where I killed, I think it was like 2 big knights and 2 Helverins in a single turn. And that's like 1,000 points for your opponent's army. Like they're not coming back from that. Like you have your entire army and they have half an army. Like you're not losing that game. Chaos Knights is kind of similar. The only difference I'll say is that they might be running some carnivores, and carnivores are actually pretty scary for us. They're hitting on hitting on 3s, sustained, winning on 3s, pretty cheap. So they could potentially just like run up to Lord of Change and just kill it or do significant damage. And the double Gatling Despoiler, like, it has high volume, winning on 5s obviously, but high volume and a bit of AP to push through like the Scarbrand or Be'lakor 3-up. Still winning because I just think we can pick our battles, we can kill what we need to, but the Chaos Knights run those Nurgle units, and or like sometimes they have like Beasts of Chaos and Nurglings, and they can kind of screen us out a little bit. This is another one. Again, I'm going a little bit against the stats. Chaos Knight's funny enough, demonic incursion is like around a 50%, and it's actually even below that against Imperial Knights, but like I've never struggled into either of these armies, so I'm confident in putting them here personally. Next, in sort of the 50-50 tier, I'm going to put Leagues of Votann. The stats are very close to 50 for both. For Demonic Incursion, Scintillating's a bit worse, and I think that's because Leagues of Votann, they're kind of like Marines, but they're chunkier, and they're more down to kind of bog down the game in the midboard and just like sit on points. We would prefer generally if they have the land forts, like they're running land forts and vehicles and those kinds of things, because Scarbrand, especially with +1 AP, like he literally just like he can't not kill a land fort almost. It's like he super consistently does that. Bellacor's even good at meleeing them. The Everstave guy's okay, especially if you boost up his AP. It's when they're running Hearthguard, that detachment with lots of Hearthguard, and they're kind of jumping around and stuff. That's definitely worse for us. So I'm pretty confident putting that. It's very build dependent on both ends, but I would say it's probably around a 50-50. In terms of a matchup we need a little bit of scamming for, I will put down... I'll put Orcs here. Orcs, funny enough, the win rate is abysmal. I think the Demonic Incursion win rate here is like 30%. And it kind of is a little bit in line with Astromill Tarm. Obviously, I think Guards are like a way stronger army than Orcs, but Orcs do just have lots of models. They kind of can bog the board down and make it hard for us to jump around. And when they need to kill a greater demon or two, like they can call the wall and they can totally do that. So what a smart Orc player would do is play sort of cagey with their important like hammer units. They will just bog us down with crap for a while, and then when we feel like we need to commit, they'll come out and they'll kill what they need to. And I think that's why the matchup's not great. I think the reason why it's not on horrible tier is because like Scintillating Legion is kind of good. Like it can get the jump on them with lots of shooting and kill what it needs to. Even like the little chaff units, funny enough, are kind of decent into Orcs. Like the flamers and things can kill a bunch of grots or whatever. But I'm pretty confident saying this is not an amazing matchup. In the Wee Woo tier, what are we putting in the Wee Woo tier? I'll put GSC. So in that team tournament, I ended up going like before I played the Pack-Bound Defilers, and it was like a joke of a game. But I think I had like a big win, a tie, and a big loss. And the big win was into Admech. The draw was into it was Eldar, which I know I put in like the winning tier, but it was the Windrider House. It's kind of a unique list. The big losses into GSC, they can kind of do the thing where there's too many of them. They're everywhere. You can't deep strike anywhere, and they're surprisingly decent at killing us. Like they have the mortal wounds from the jackals. They have the +1 to wound acolyte bomb that just rolls a million dice at you, and they kill like a couple of the demons they need to, and then they just score a bunch of points, and we don't, and then we lose. So that's right. But with the stats are pretty reflective. Like there's not a lot of games, but the win rates are pretty low. Like it's like 30 to 40%. Hell yeah, I'll just put agents here. There's like no games there, but we are winning the games that are being played. And their only rule strength is killing like infantry and stuff like that, but we don't run a ton of infantry, so pretty confident putting them there. What's another good matchup here? I almost think I could do a bunch at once. No, I'll do Grey Knights and then I'll do the rest. Grey Knights, they're good at killing infantry. They're very elite, and that kind of works against them here because they can't screen us super well. And Dread Knights have a weird toughness. I think they're like T8. And yes, they have a 2-up save, but T8 is like you're just throwing so many saves at them from the Lords of Change that they're going to fail some saves and they're going to fall over. I think the win rates are pretty reflected. Like I want to say it was like in the high 50s. And so yeah, I think that we're definitely favored into Grey Knights there. The next reasonable matchup, I'll put Necrons, which is maybe surprising because Necrons are definitely, I think, a stronger army than us overall. But Necrons, again, very, very dependent on the demons you've brought and pretty dependent on the build they're running. If they're running like Star Shatter with a bunch of DDAs, that's actually probably good for us because, again, we have the Lone Op. Our shooting is pretty decent at killing DDAs, and they're like this mid to low volume of fire gun, but invuln saves work well against, which is nice. Additionally, like they get if my memory is correct, like they get dev wounds when they don't move, but with the Lone Op, like you can kind of force them to move. They have to move, right? So that's pretty good. I think the stats are all pretty close to 50, and there's a huge amount of games. Like Demons are a reasonably popular army, and so are Necron. Like Necrons are like top 3 most popular armies in the game, and the win rates are very close to 50, which really helps me. Yeah, I'm fairly certain that I can just call this a 50-50 matchup at that point. We need to scam a little. I'll put Death Watch here. This could honestly probably be even worse, but I'll put it here just because, again, there's kind of low volume of games, and Scintillating is pretty... This is one where Scintillating has a win rate, but Demonic Incursion does not. Just because Scintillating is good at killing marine bodies, and they tend to just run a ton of infantry. And Demonic Incursion kind of wants you to have some vehicles that they can punch, or monsters or something. Again, they can jump around. They have a lethal hit abilities and things like that. They also have a little bit of melee, which we don't love. They have like heroic and fight first and things that can chip away at us, so not great. There's not a ton of games played. I also think that Deathwatch players, like they kind of are in the driver's seat in this one, and we're kind of just hoping they like underswing here and there, or they like underestimate the Lord of Change damage. Wee Woo. I think there's only probably one more matchup here, and I'll put Ultramarines, and this is probably up here. Like, I think that Gene Cult is like, well, these are all just bad. I'm not even going to try to say which one's the worst. The thing with Ultramarines is there's so many games. Like, if you just filter in StatCheck for, like, Demons versus Space Marines, and you select Blades of Ultramar and Gladius, the win rate, there's a lot of games that the win rate is the win rate is below 40%. For like Demonic Incursion, it's not good. The hulls are just like we don't really want to see like multiple Vindicators and Repexes and Ballistas. Like that's not something we really want to kill. And +1 to wound on the Repex. Like the Repex in a lot of Space Marine detachments or like lists is not that scary for us because the sort of secondary guns don't do very much, and the big laser gun, like even if it puts 2 saves through on us. Like, you know, you roll 2 4-ups, you make 1, you fail the other, you CP reroll it, you might make it. So you almost have like a 75% chance to not take damage. It's the +1 to wound in all the other guns shooting you is really what kills you. And so what can happen is, especially if they're running like Gilliman or what have you, is like they ult one thing, they blast it with like maybe even less than half of their shooting, and then everything else goes into the other demon, and like they kill 2, and you know we might not be able to bounce back from that because they have so many like 3-ups and 2-ups with AOC. So that's why I think the matchup is so bad. The Hell Yeah tier. I'm gonna put Space Wolves here. Space Wolves really struggle at killing big things because they're strength 5 and we are T10 and T11. The win rates are pretty good here. It's like high 50s to low 60s. The Vect on Logan Grimnar is annoying, but what I find happens like a lot against Space Wolves is we'll put the Guo up, they won't really interact with them, and then they'll kind of jam their army like later, like in the mid game, and we will fight them, and they'll have this turn where it's like looking kind of good for the Space Wolves player because like we've engaged them, but we didn't totally kill them. But the reality is like even if we like engage them and only kill like you know, sort of like 30 to 40% of these like Terminator blobs. The remaining guys just don't really do that much. And then it's like, yeah, there'll be this moment where it's like turn 2 or turn 3 and the score looks good for the Space Wolves, but by the time it gets to turn 4 or turn 5, like they're all dead. And then we score like, you know, 20 points on the final 2 turns, and then we take the game. That's my personal experience with that matchup. Okay, we can make this part go pretty quick here with the good unless something silly happens. I'm going to put Emperor's Children and Blood Angels and Dark Angels here. Not that these armies are all the same. I think Emperor's Children, for me, Emperor's Children, Blood Angels are kind of similar, and then Dark Angels and Space Wolves are kind of similar. In the sense that these guys are running, like, they're mostly T4, and they're, well, actually it's not totally true for Emperor's Children, but, they just, like, they're more offensive Marine armies, and they can do some damage to us, but they will take so much damage back. Like, the Lords of Change shooting is lethal into both of these. Kairos Indirect is lethal into both of these. Scarbrand is like 6-inch deep striking and heroicing and just murdering stuff. This is like, these two I think are the epitome of like the Lord of Change buff. Just made this matchup, like, I think the scintillating win rate into Blood Angels is like legitimately 80% or something. Like, it's like, it's completely insane. Like, you just kill them. Like, you just kill them so fast. The scintillating has like the ability to pull out of combat is just like the icing on the cake, and Demonic Incursion doesn't need to pull out of combat. Like Scarbrand and Be'lakor just punch them in the face. The Dark Angels are a little bit like the Space Wolves. The only difference is they're running fewer bodies, but they're more durable. And the Lion is like a credible, like, scary guy in melee. The only thing with him is that a Lord of Change can just potentially kill him. Or you can kind of play around him a little bit because we're pretty mobile. You just look at where he is, look at where the Deathwing Knights are, and you can maybe even set up a turn where, like, Scarbrand and Be'lakor engage the Deathwing Knights. But before that happens, like a Lord of Change or two, or like a Lord of Change in Kairos or something, or like indirecting or shooting Lion and trying to kill him, and things like that. They don't really have the units to screen you, and they're also not that lethal aside from the Lion, and that's kind of the issue with them in this matchup. The win rates are like above 60 for both attachments. You could even argue this is down here, but I'll leave it here for now. Reasonable matchup. I'm going to put Tyranids here. Even though I think we're probably a better army than Tyranids. They have a lot of things. They can screen us. They buffed the Lash Whip Winged Prime, or the Lash Whip Tyranid Prime. And that unit's kind of annoying for us. Like 20 Gaunts. We don't have an activation that just goes, I'm doing this thing, I'm killing 20 Gaunts. Like, we don't really have that. And what happens is that unit's then going to Blood Surge, and they're going to tag us. They have high OC. They have sustained lethal up, and like they can kind of chip away at you, and they're going to neuter our points. And then it's like, it will take us a few turns to get rid of that. And then what happens is, like, it's turn like 3 or 4, and then a big Zone Thrope unit with lethal hits comes out, or like a few Exocrines shoot at us, and that can kill us. So now what can happen is they don't run that full package of like all of the Gaunts. They try to kind of cheat it a little bit and run less, and then we clobber them. Like, it's kind of a fine line in list building. Also, you could have like one more good chaff clearing guy. Like, if you don't have that, like if you don't have Kairos and you have Rodigus, suddenly like that's pretty bad. Or like you can play more aggressively with your Plague Bears, and they don't like that either because they have lots of OC and they aren't that easy for them to kill. So the win rates are also pretty close. I think the win rates, if I remember correctly, are pretty much near 50%. Next into we need to scam a little. This one I'll go with the stats, I'll say. I've never really struggled into World Eaters, but the stats are actually pretty bad. Like, the stats are like in the low 40s. If I had to guess, part of that is just like the slaughter bound. Like, it's difficult for us to screen other people. We don't think about that very often, but if that slaughter bound rapid ingressing Berserker Glaive guy, like, he can probably find an opportunity to rapid ingress and then move and charge and just like blow up a greater demon. Kairos helps here because he can indirect and like kill two, and then only one comes back, and then maybe like losing an 8-pound or two means that that unit can't do what it wants. Which is how my games usually go. Is like my like double Lord of Change and Kairos. I think is really good in this matchup. But if you don't run that and you're running other things like either 5 bigs or some other combination, I think that's when this matchup gets bad, and that's probably why the win rate is not great. So I'll put this here, even though for me I'd probably put it somewhere around here. There's no more, I think, dominating matchups. Black Templars I will put in the mid. They just run lots of models. We have mission play here because like we can kind of navigate in their deployment zone if they want to be active. They usually just run like 3 or 4 of those big blobs, right? In Bastion Task Force, all the Crusaders, but we can totally get around them. And even then, like they don't have AOC, so if you can pop sustained on the Lord of Change, real ones to hit. You don't need to be in the Long Up Bar because they generally don't have much shooting at all. And you could totally, the Lord of Change can totally kill like 10 to 14 of these guys in a single go. But consequentially, I mean to say, that one unit, like one of those Crusader units with some characters attached, has like as much OC as our entire army. Like, unironically, that's like, 20 OC2 models plus some characters is like 40 something OC. That's literally more OC than all of our greater demons combined. So you can just run behind on score and just be on the back foot like the entire time. And that's it. That's pretty much where I'd put our matchups. I think that demons are overall like an above average army. I think that like you can tell because there's more matchups sort of on the good end of things. I think that we're more of a mid-table like bully army. I think that as you get into like the 3-0, like 4-0, 3-1 matches, and you start, especially if you start playing against some of these armies and it's a skilled pilot, it's going to be a little bit difficult. Like they have the screening down. They're not going to get baited by your lone op and try to run in and shoot you. They're just going to kind of goad you out, and they're going to clap you with like high lethality. Like Guard can do that. Ultramarines can definitely do that. The Pact Bound Defiler can do that. Tau can do that. Or the opposite of that is armies that just don't need to. Like Gene said, there's just guys everywhere. Guard is like that. Sisters can just have tons of units that you kind of have to interact with, and you can do it favorably. And that's what makes those matchups not great. As far as the good matchups go, like non-tricksy Marines that are more like, I'm a Space Marine and I'm going to kill you. We don't care about that. Like, besides these two, like Blood Angels and Children, guys are like, I'm Space Marines and I'm durable and I'm going to get locked in combat. It's like, well, you're not that durable and I'm not scared of you. So we're gonna deal with that fine. And then these sort of high mobility glass hammer armies, the glass hammer isn't actually that lethal into us, and we can navigate to kind of disrupt their combos by hitting units they might not expect with our mobility. And so that's why I'd have those there. That's it. That's the list. I think that it's going to be interesting how 11th goes. So obviously there's kind of discussions that demons are probably not going to be an army in the way that they are now. Like, we never got a codex this edition. Things are probably on the outs, in all fairness. As a demons player, I totally get that, like, just running 6 big guys is like not the healthiest playstyle for the game. I'd personally love it if they just gave us some detachments that's like maybe 1 detachment point, and it's like Kairos and Lords of Change, and that's it. And then you can combine it with like the Tzeentch Thousand Suns book, and there's actually some overlapping synergies there instead of what we have now, where it's like there's 1 detachment that lets you combine them, and they're not really synergizing in the best way. Like, like I'd love to run Keepers with Noise Marines or something. Like, I'd love to do that, but that's just not a super viable build right now. But we'll see. So that's the list. Thanks for watching.